Right, welcome back everybody. So today I'm going to do a review of Blood and Steel, which dropped through the letterbox a couple of days ago. It's the new Blood and game from Firelock games, following things like Blood and Plunder. And it's basically a skirmish game set in the late Victorian period, well, mid-late Victorian period actually, 1837 to 1901. So it captures the American Civil War, the Franco-Prussian War, the Anglo-Zulu War, all the different skirmish games that a lot of people are playing at the moment. So I had a read through it a couple of nights ago and last night, and I've got to say I'm quite impressed with it. So this is the book, very nice shiny cover. And so I'll take you through and give you a little bit of a flavour of the mechanics. So really nicely bound, late Victorian conflicts, really well designed. I like the kind of, you know, the graphics and the Blood and Steel graphics. Nice picture of the American Civil War going on. Really well laid out as well. Okay, starts with the game basics, 1.1, 1.2, and what you need to play, and it takes you through in a very, very simple, straightforward way. Now, one thing I've found with a lot of similar rule systems, skirmish rule systems, is I'm flicking backwards and forwards all the time through these books, trying to find a rule, and then they've got several sections where there is a rule that relates to the same thing. So it could be, say, morale, and you're looking for morale and it's in one section, and then there's a reference to morale in another section and a different section, and it just drives you crazy. I want everything in one place when I see it, and then I can just move on to the next part, and this book looks like it does exactly that. So that was a plus straight away for me. So obviously 28mm, or you can play in a short scale, smaller scale if you want. The dice in the used are 10-sided dice. Everything is in inches. There are games markers, okay, that you need to play. You'll need at least two sets of 10-sided dice. You'll need one for your initiative dice and one for your skill roll dice, so your to-hit dice and your combat dice. Okay, if you're playing an opponent, they'll probably want different coloured dice as well, just so you don't get mixed up. So 10-sided dice is the way. Forces are organised into units. Units are between 4 and 8 models. Remember, this is a skirmish game, so you could play with quite a few units, and to be honest, I'm really considering this for CrackCon 3 and playing a Franco-Prussian game, and maybe even using these rules for that, which means I'll have quite a few units on the table, so I'm probably going to push this game to the limit in that case. But 4 to 8 models in a unit is the norm in this game. So 8 models, so it's similar to sharp practice in that sense, that, you know, a unit of 8 models. There is unit cohesion in this, as you can see. They act together, they must keep within a distance of 6 inches. Now, I haven't found anywhere in the rules where cohesion is a problem if you don't stay in cohesion, so I think that's basically just to, you know, make it a bit more simple, if you make it a bit more manageable if you do that. Now, I don't base all my models individually, I base them in groups of 2 on 40 by 40 bases, so I probably will completely ignore cohesion. I'm not going to separate the bases out too far, obviously, but cohesion isn't really an issue for me, and unless it's got a massive impact on the game, then I pretty much ignore it. We've got leader zone of control. You know, you've got leaders, you've got a main leader, you can also have subordinate leaders, so a little bit like sharp practice again in that case. And I'll take you through the combat in a moment. Now, one thing I like about this is you also get this idea of bite the bullet. Now, bite the bullet, you get 3 bite the bullet markers, and when you fail a roll, you can re-roll that roll using a bite the bullet. So even if you're rolling for an entire unit, so you're rolling 8 dice to hit, if you feel like, you know, you've got less than 50% hits, and the average isn't so good, then you can spend a bite the bullet marker, and you can re-roll all of the dice. You cannot re-roll a re-roll, so you only get to re-roll once. So bite the bullet is quite nice because that could be a game changer. And this is quite a simple rule set, very simple in fact, and I know some people don't like that, but every now and again you want something within a simple rule set which can shift the balance of the game, and within these rules I think there are 2 ways in which that's done. Bite the bullet is one of those. Line of sight is 360, just like in most games, and basically you can shoot in any direction. Okay, that's what one line, and that's what 360 means, isn't it? Okay. Game length, I reckon, between 6 and 8 turns. So how do we play then? So the first thing we do is we work out our attrition points. So every unit has, every force rather, has attrition points. So you divide the number of models in your force by 4. So say you've got 32 models, divided by 4, you've got 8 attrition points. Okay. Sorry, you've got an attrition value of 8. All right. Okay. Every time you lose a model, you get a every time you lose a number of models equal to the attrition value, you accumulate an attrition point. This sounds complicated, but it's not. So it's basically just divide it by 4, okay, and then once you lose 25%, you gain an attrition point, okay, and another 25%, you gain another attrition point. Once you reach 3 attrition points, your leader has to make a resolve roll. So a resolve roll could be something like 5+ on a d10. Most of the leaders seem to have a resolve of 5+ on a d10. If they fail that roll, the army leaves the table. So that's quite harsh. So you're pretty much gonna, you know, if you're down to up to 3 attrition points, then you've probably lost 75% of your force anyway. And you probably think, well, that is quite harsh. But what you can also do is you can gain attrition points, or you can rather, you know, you can lose attrition points by taking objectives. If you can take objectives, you can lose some of those attrition points, and that basically is a kind of an indication of your kind of resolve and your morale has been raised because you've managed to take an objective. So it isn't as straightforward as you just go down till you get 25%, and then you are on 3 attrition points. To be honest, if you keep making those resolve rolls, you could stay around forever on 25% of your troops. Okay, so attrition points are a big thing, a little bit like a break test in removing your army from the table. So that's the first thing you do, is to decide your attrition points. The second thing you do is, when you're deciding on your force, you work out your initiative. Now, you get an initiative pool in this game. Now, I've never played Blood and Plunder or any of the Blood and Game types of games, so this is the first time I've come across the initiative pool. And basically, you roll initiative for every point of initiative in your force. Now, most units have got 1 point of initiative. Okay, so for example, using the example we used earlier, you've got 4 units of 8 men. You've got an initiative value of 8. Okay, so you've got one initiative per unit. So you roll 8 dice. What you're trying to get is, you're trying to get 4+ on those 8 dice. It doesn't matter if you get 1 to 3, but 4+ is the ideal. Your opponent does the same thing, and then every turn you use one of those dice to bid for the initiative. So you've got to kind of hide them in some way. So you've got to use some kind of dial or counter or something like that, and you basically bid against each other, and obviously within the turn. And when when you've used the initiative dice, it's discarded, and then when all the initiative dice have been used from the initiative pool, then that's the end of the turn. Okay. So what's the purpose of the initiative dice other than to win initiative? Well, once you win initiative, you can activate your units, right? So if you roll a 4 to 10 on any of your initiative dice, you get 2 actions. If you roll a 1 to 3, you can only take a single action. Now, things like fatigue will affect that. If you take fatigue in a game or in a turn, that will cut out the amount of actions you can take, reduce the number of actions you can take, usually by 1. So if you're taking 2 actions, you go down to 1 action. If you've only got initiative dice with 1 to 3 on, okay, left for your units, and you've got units with fatigue and they're shaken, then they probably can't act at all. Okay, so it's probably best to move through the dice that give you a numbered 4 to 10 before you get to the 1 to 3s where you're looking for a single action. However, you know, this is where the strategy comes in. You might only want a unit to act once, just to aim, just to charge, just to, you know, run to ground, take a position, something like that. and they only need one activation, so you can expend a 1 to 3 dice and keep your 4 to 10 dice for later. So I think there's a little bit of strategy there. There's a little bit of a kind of a random chart here as well, where if when you roll your initiative dice, so I roll my 8 initiative dice, if I roll more 10s than 1s, then I get some fortunate thing happening. I roll a d10 on the chart and I get some sort of bonus. If I roll more 1s than 10s on my initiative pool, I roll it as a calamity and something bad happens. That's quite nice. So every turn something good or bad might happen to you. And again, you've also got your bite the bullet roll as well, so you could re-roll your initiative dice if they were all 1s, say, for example, which is, having played Baron's War, I roll a lot of 1s, so that's not good. And this is a game where you want to roll high, you want to be rolling those 10s. Okay, so basically the turn moves through from one player to the next, each of you bidding on, you bidding your initiative dice, and the highest going first, etc, etc. Okay, there is a little bit thing called the initiative edge, which I'm not going to go into, which is kind of a complication of that, but that is essentially it, that you bid against each other using your initiative dice to go before your opponent. Actions. So when you use initiative dice which numbers 4 to 10, then you get 2 actions. So these are some of the things you could do. So you could reload and you could aim, you could advance and you could shoot. Okay, you could run to ground and you could shoot, you could charge and you could melee with 2 actions. So 2 actions is good. Okay, you pretty much want to be acting twice if you want to. There is something called free actions, which some traits will give you, but essentially you are using actions dictated by your initiative dice. So again, a little bit like sharp practice, where you get 2 actions when you expend an initiative point from the leader. Okay, but a little bit more simple, and you haven't got the additional cards to use as well. Okay, so I quite like this idea that you've either got 1 action or 2 actions, and that's pretty much it. Okay, for your unit, and you can choose what you're going to use those actions for, and that's where a little bit of strategy comes in as well. So I quite like that idea. Okay, so you're bidding on your initiative, you're using your actions. You might also get command actions from your leader. Leaders can give command actions as well. They can use command points to use command actions. So if a friendly unit's in line of sight, a leader can give command to as many units as they have command points. So a leader has so many command points, and they can expend, they receive command points. A unit can only get 1 command point per turn. So it's a little bit like Baron's War, in that you've got so many actions that a lead unit might have, and that person can dole out actions around him in addition to the initiative dice actions as well. So that's quite flexible. That's a little bit more flexibility. At the end of the turn then, so you carry on that until everybody's used up their initiative dice, and then at the end of the turn there's a morale phase, and basically if anybody's got 3 attrition points, as we've already said, if they've acquired 3 attrition points, so you've lost basically 75% of your force, or you've acquired attrition points in some other way, and then the leader makes a single D10 resolve test. Now most leaders' resolves are about 5, so it's going to be 5 plus. If you fail, then basically the force has lost its will to live and withdraws. So you're really trying to keep your attrition down. Okay, you really don't want to be acquiring 3 or more attrition points. Okay, right. So that is basically the turn. So what kind of things can you do? We'll just flick through terrain. Again, some pretty nice pictures. Okay, terrain makes a difference to movement, obviously, same as everything else. Shooting. So shooting and melee are very, very similar. Very, very straightforward. Every unit has got a shoot value, and every unit has also got a shoot save. Okay, So basically you roll above your shoot value. The most common shoot value is a 6, which is average, and that is modified by things like range. Okay, so up to between 10 and 15 inches is +2, so your 6 becomes an 8+. Yeah, okay. Between 20 and 25, your 6 becomes a 10. So it becomes harder and harder to hit. Target and cover +1, so your 6 becomes a 7+, and so on and so on. So you simply roll above your number modified by circumstances. Okay. If you then hit, if some of those shoot rolls actually hit, then the opponent saves. They make a shoot save, which again could be a 5 or a 4, depending on how tough they are. And that will also have modifiers as well. So if they're in hard cover, they get +1. Okay, on the -1, yeah, because it's on the roll, of course. So a 5+ shoot save becomes a 4+ shoot save, so it's better. Okay, hard cover. I would probably, I don't know, there are some things in here that I would probably fiddle about with in terms of house ruling. So for example, I might give soft cover -1 and hard cover -2. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I might fiddle with. Alright, but the thing is though, it is a very simple game, and it's a very straightforward game and easy to play, and the one thing you don't want to do is start fiddling with the game and you know, make it as complicated as the games that you are trying to avoid. Okay, so we'll see about that kind of thing. So when they shoot save test, okay, for every save test successful, reduces one of the hits. Okay, but for every failure of a shoot save test, you take one casualty, you take a model off. Alright, so really straightforward. You roll to hit, they roll to save. For every failure, they take a model off. Alright, and for every 25%, every 4 of their attrition attribute, they take 1 attrition point. Right, and so they're trying to avoid getting to 3. Once they've done that, once they've taken models off, they take the resolve test, which is a little bit like a morale test, and you always get 1d10. So even if you don't lose any models, you still roll a d10 for your morale test. It's a little bit like getting pinned in bolt action, and so you roll a d10, but you roll another d10 for every model removed as a casualty. So if you're taking 2 casualties, you roll 3d10. Alright, against the resolve value of that unit. So the resolve value of a unit could be 5, you roll 3d10. If you're in the presence of a leader, you get -1 on the roll, so it could be 4+, yeah, okay. For every unsuccessful roll, you take a point of fatigue. Okay, now this is where fatigue comes in. So you shoot, they save, for every casualty they take, they roll a d10 plus another d10. For every failure, they take a point of fatigue. So say they roll 3d10, they fail twice, they take 2 points of fatigue. How does that affect the unit? This is where we do flick once back. Okay, fatigue. There's a fatigue chart, which basically means that things happen to you, so it makes you less effective. So 2 fatigue, unit loses 1 action per activation. So that's quite bad, isn't it? Because if you've only got dice rolls left which are 1 to 3, then that unit cannot act anymore. That unit is fatigued. Alright, a unit on 3 fatigue becomes shaken. We'll talk about shaken in a second. And 7 fatigue you remove from the game. Okay, so fatigue is bad. Alright, fatigue is a little bit like shock in sharp practice. Okay, so even if you're not, your unit hasn't been destroyed, fatigue will knock you off the table, and there's a chance that you will start to retreat as you take fatigue. Okay, so what does shaken mean? So shaken is the thing really you want to get your opponent's units to. When you get 3 points of fatigue, you become shaken, you fall back 4 inches towards a deployment area. In this there are deployment areas, there are also objective markers as well. Okay, again a little bit like sharp practice. So they they fall back, and then every time you take an additional fatigue point you fall back again. So you basically keep retreating as you take fatigue points, and eventually you will probably get to the table edge, and when you do that you take a resolve test. If you fail, you're off, you're gone. Okay, and that obviously adds to your attrition points as well. So if you've got 4 units and you lose a unit, you're going to gain an attrition point straight away, because that's 25% of your force gone. Okay, and so what you're trying to do is you're trying to, you know, put casualties on units. You're trying to force them to be shaken, and you're trying to force them to retreat. You can rally them, okay, in order to remove the shaken marker, but they can't do anything else unless they're actually in a melee. So if they're caught in a melee, they have to fight back, but they can be rallied. Okay, so you want to force units off the table by making them shaken, making them fatigued, and also obviously by, you know, if you can do enough casualties, you can probably destroy a unit as well. So that is shooting, and to be honest, close combat works in exactly the same way. Skill test versus melee melee skill test versus melee save test, and then followed by a resolve test, and then a follow-up combat. Units that become shaken or take any fatigue while shaken during close combat must immediately fall back. When this happens, the opponent may follow up and be placed back into contact. So you can just keep fighting and pushing them back and back and back, okay, as far as you want. Or you can push them back, take a 1-inch consolidation move, and then shoot at them. So it works really nicely. Now, obviously I've not played this game yet, but the way it seems to work is it's simple with a kind of an effective aspect to it that gives you opportunity for some kind of strategy. Here we've got traits, so we can change the units so they're not all the bland and not all identical. Again, a little bit like sharp practice, where we've got different types of traits. Okay, and if we flick forward, missions are important as well. You draw mission cards. Okay, so you've kind of got your secret mission within the game, which is good. So you can, you know, you're gaining attrition points, and you're losing attrition points. Okay, or you're forcing attrition points on your opponent by taking their objectives. Okay, and then we've got some force lists at the back. Now, you know, that's quite a hefty chunk of the book in force lists, and that just goes to show you how simple and straightforward the rules are. And to me, that's a good thing. Okay, I want simple rules that I'm going to have fun with. There's no need to overcomplicate everything. So let's take a look at a popular force that most of us are probably interested in. Obviously, I do want to play Mexicans, but okay, let's just go forward. We've got Anglo-Zulu War. A lot of people play this period. Here we've got our commanders, okay, but here we've got our British regulars. Okay, so if you look at the British regulars, you can see they've got true grit, which means they can re-roll failed melee saves. That's interesting. So when they you know, someone attacks them, does say 5 hits with melee, they roll the saves and they only make 2 saves. They can re-roll the saves because they're tough. Basically, they're tough fighters. Re-roll melee saves. They're drilled, so they can be in a formation of 5+ models. Now, there are no formations in this, but obviously if you're going to put models side by side, maybe 4x4, like in sharp practice, you know, they gain big target, which means they are easier to hit. I think it's -1 on the roll to hit them, on the shoot, but they become intimidating, and they get a -1 bonus on melee saves. So here's the rolls. So shoot, unlimited. Now that's interesting, because unlimited means with rifles in this game they've got unlimited range. Now the reason for that is because the table's a reasonable size, but realistically you could shoot at someone with a rifle from quite a long distance. So as I said before, even though a rifle has got unlimited range, the further someone is away, the harder and harder it gets to shoot. So I think I said something like, if it's over 25 inches, you know, with a rifle that's got unlimited range, you're probably adding another 4 or 5 to your shoot roll anyway, so you're only ever hitting on a 10. Okay, so it doesn't matter that it's unlimited, you know, it's the distance that matters. Melee 6+ to hit with the melee, shoot save 6+ to save, melee save 7+, so a little bit harder. Okay, but their melee save gets better if they go into formation, and they get to re-roll melee saves anyway, so that's interesting. Resolve 5+, okay, initiative 1, okay, most units have got initiative of 1, so that is your that's your initiative dice, okay, 1, so 5 units of British regulars will give you 5 initiative dice. And that, I think, is basically it. I've spoken for about 25 minutes. Like I say, very impressed. I like it a lot. I'm going to have a bit of a bash tomorrow. Probably, I think I'm going to do a solo game, but I think really it's probably very, very hard to do a solo game because the whole idea is the secret initiatives, isn't it? So if I know what the initiative dice are on both sides, it's going to be difficult. So I might have to just mess with that, I think, and just bear with the fact that I'm going to know what the initiative dice are. I can't really avoid that. Okay, so hope you've enjoyed that. I'm certainly going to play this. Okay, I'm very, very much considering using. I'm going to crack on 3 if you're going to be there. Hopefully I'll see you there. Picked up my ticket today, and I'm going to be running Franco-Prussian War game. I was considering sharp practice, but now I'm thinking Blood and Steel. Now I know that Firelock are going to bring out Franco-Prussian expansion in, and well, I don't know when they're going to do it, so I might have to play with the rules, fiddle with the units, and maybe come up with my own Franco-Prussian War units before October. But hopefully Firelock might get it out before October, in which case I won't have to do that. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Sorry that I haven't done any videos for a couple of months, but I've got summer holidays coming up, so I'm going to bang out a load of battle reports if I can. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.